Hello there, welcome to the Music Bliss YouTube channel. My name is JD from Studio 2105. I am a music producer, a mixer, and also an audio engineer, right? And I run a recording studio right here in KL. Today we're going to be taking a look at how I record electric guitars. And to help me out with this, joining me right here, we've got the awesomely talented and cool Naza along with this whole entire rig. We got the amps, we got all these pedals, we got also the microphone. We'll talk a little bit more on the gear in a little while. Before we even start recording anything, it's very important to get things sounding right at the source. As the saying goes, it starts with the source. And this means that I've already sat down right before this and worked with Naza to work out the right combination of guitar, right combination of amp and the cabinet, along with the tones and effects that he's going to be using, right? It's very, very important to make sure that the guitarist is getting the amp sounding the way that he or she wants. Only once after we have gotten the tones can we actually start sitting down and thinking about microphone positions. The most basic approach to recording an electric guitar is to use just one microphone. Now this can either be a dynamic microphone or a condenser. Now for today's example, we're going to be using a condenser, right? In particular, the mic that we're going to be using will be the Austrian Audio OC818. There are basically two approaches when it comes to recording a guitar amp. Number one, close miking. Number two, ambient miking. We're going to spend a lot more time talking about close miking since we only have one microphone in this example. Here's the basic rule of thumb. The brightest position is always at the dead center of the speaker cone, right at where the dust cap is. So when you move the microphone further outwards, right, towards the edge of the speaker cone, the tone will get darker and hence slightly warmer as well. So let me recap that very quickly. The brightest with the most presence is dead center of the speaker cone, and then as you gradually move it outwards, it will go a little bit darker in tone and a little bit warmer. So microphone positioning in this case is already basically EQ, right? If you want to sort of get a brighter tone, move it towards the center, right, of the speaker cone. If you want to have a slightly warmer tone, you can move it towards the edge of the speaker cone. Personally, my favorite starting point is the part where the dust cap meets the speaker cone. So it's not exactly dead center, but it's roughly about an inch off towards the center of the speaker cone. Let's talk a little bit about my signal chain. Now, obviously, starting with the guitarist, the guitar, his instrument, the pedals, the amp and the speaker cap, right? Then the microphone in front of the speaker cap itself. And from the microphone, it goes into a preamp. I'm using basically this channel strip that I built here myself in my rack. This starts with a decking mic pre and the EQ. Then it follows and it goes into a DBX 160A compressor. And then it also goes into a second compressor, and this one, right, is a Universal Audio 1176 Revision D, DLLN. So now, depending on the source, sometimes I will use the compressor, sometimes I will not, right? But in today's example, we're going to pretty much bypass the compressor, okay? Because when you deal with electric guitar, and especially with overdriven and distortion tones, it already has a little bit of, right, self-compression in it. So coming out from the preamp and the compressor, it goes into my analog to digital converter, into an AD converter. AD converter that I use is a Mytek Stereo 96 ADC, and that feeds into my audio interface. All right, now comes the fun part. Naza, you ready? Yeah. Okay, right. So working out some of the pre-production, right? Working out throughout the song that we're going to use as our demo example today. So there's going to be two parts. There's going to be a clean section at the start of the song, and there's also going to be a dirty / like an overdriven section at the second half of this little demo. Okay. So ideally what you should do, because this is a recording session after all, usually what we do is we will record, right, the clean part separately, and then we will record the overdriven and distortion part separately, all right? Okay, it's not a live thing where you have to go and record everything in one take. That's the beauty of Studio Magic. So, shall we start? Right? Let's go for the clean take first. And ready when you are? All right, okay, nailed it. Right, so let's move on to the distortion part. Here we go. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. All right. That's awesome. So let's take a listen. Let's play back the track. Let's take a quick listen to the tracks in solo, right? So here's the clean guitar. Pretty impressive, even though we recorded with the guitar right here in the control room itself, right? Usually the guitar amp is usually in a separate room, right? But to make things easier for the shoot, right, for this video, we did everything in one room. Pretty impressive, even at this loud volume, you can hear, right, that there's practically almost no leakage and no bleed into the microphone itself, okay? And that's probably something that I want to mention. You want to make sure that you use, right, a microphone which you want to use either a cardioid or a hypercardioid polar pattern, okay? Now, you can of course always explore other options as well. Maybe if you are going for a more ambient sound, you want to get the sound of the amp in the room, you can either pull it further back, you could switch it to maybe a figure 8 or an omnipolar pattern. And a mic like the OC818, which is a multi-pattern mic, is super awesome, right? And if I'm not mistaken, right, this OC818 also has got this super cool function, which is called the Polar Pilot, if I'm not mistaken, right? And this is super cool because what this does, it enables you to control and change the polar pattern on the microphone, not only during the mix, but remotely, right? And it does it via Bluetooth, via an app on your smartphone or your mobile device. So, right, the mic could be like, you know, on stage or in a totally separate room in another ISO booth, right, or in the live room out there, and I can be switching the polar patterns right from, right, the palm of my hand, right? I don't even have to walk all the way there to change the polar pattern already. Let's continue taking a listen, and let's listen from where it transitions into the distortion parts, right? Right. And I am really impressed and really happy with the way it sounds. Somehow this is capturing the amp exactly the way that we are hearing it in front of the room. If we stand in front of the amp and we listen to it and it's being captured here, no EQ, no compression of any sorts, just the mic right in front of the cap. That is actually always the goal of recording. You want to capture the sound source accurately, you want to capture the sound source faithfully, right? And then when we play it back, when it's reproduced, the end result, right, is so much better because you don't have to use so much post-processing, you don't have to do so much mangling around with EQ or compression and all that and whatnot to get it sound, right? This is a little bit old school, but you know, sometimes the old school is still the best, right? Get the sound right at the source, capture it with a good microphone, an accurate and a faithful capture, and the end result is going to be so much better, right? Loving it. This is super awesome. It translates really well, okay, and right, I would not hesitate getting right an OC818 for myself. So let's just recap all the points that I mentioned earlier. Number one, get it right at the source. Make sure that the tones that are coming up from the guitar and the guitar amp are exactly the ones that you want to capture. It has to sound exactly the way it sounds in the room when you're standing in front of an amp, and then only, right, number two, point two, that you capture it with a good accurate microphone. And some of the consideration when it comes down to the microphone, right? Do you want to use a dynamic or do you want to use a condenser? And then where do you position the microphone, right? Remember, dead center on the speaker cone is where it is brightest and has the most presence. And a little bit further out towards the edge of the speaker cone, right, it gradually gets warmer, it gradually gets a darker tone. And also polar patterns, okay? Right, you would want to use a directional polar pattern like a cardioid or a hypercardioid. But if you want to experiment, you want to get a little bit of room ambience, perhaps maybe you want a little bit more of a distant room sound, you can also explore, right, Omni or figure 8 and polar pattern. Alright, so let's wrap this up. I want to say a big thank you and a shout out to Music Bliss, alright, for putting this video together, and also a big thank you to Naza, alright, for being such a great help, right, in today's video. Hope to see you folks in another video real soon. Stay safe, right? Happy recording and mixing. Peace, love, and music.